Today, we're talking about one of the most talked about tensions in the WNBA right now. Indiana Fever guard Sophie Cunningham, Dallas Wings rookie Paige Bueckers, and a fresh round of drama over how officials are calling games. What kicked all of this back into the spotlight wasn't a post-game rant or an official press conference, it was a TikTok. A playful, confident TikTok that, in classic Sophie fashion, came with a sharp edge. On January 15th, Sophie Cunningham posted a clip from a 2025 game against the Dallas Wings. In the video, you see her and her Indiana Fever teammate Chloe Bibby lock in defensively on Paige Bueckers. They swarm her, strip the ball clean, and Sophie takes off the other way, gliding in for a layup. It's the kind of tough, physical defensive play Cunningham is known for. Aggressive, energized, and absolutely not backing down from a star rookie. Most players would just post the highlight and move on, but Sophie is Sophie. She put it out there and let fans react. In the comments, one TikTok user chimed in and said the play kinda looks like a foul. Now, plenty of athletes would ignore that. Cunningham chose a different route. She fired back with a line that immediately grabbed attention. "I'll show you what a foul really is." That one sentence, half joke and half warning, was enough to reopen an entire conversation that has been simmering all season. Is Paige Bueckers getting a soft whistle from WNBA referees? And is Sophie Cunningham being punished for saying out loud what some players and fans might be thinking? To understand why this little exchange blew up the way it did, you have to look at what's been happening with Cunningham over the last few months. Sophie has never been a quiet, blend into the background kind of player. Between her on-court edge, her emotional reactions, and her willingness to say exactly what's on her mind, she's built a reputation as one of the league's most outspoken personalities. She leans into it with her social media and with her own podcast, Show Me Something. That personality has earned her plenty of fans, but it's also cost her, literally. Earlier in the 2025 season, the WNBA hit her with a $500 fine over another TikTok. In that video, she lip-synced along with Sabrina Carpenter's song Man-Child, mouthing lyrics that call someone stupid, slow, and useless. Normally, that might just look like a normal trending audio, but Sophie tagged @SomeRefs in the post. That changed everything. The league didn't find it funny. Tagging referees while mouthing those lyrics was seen as crossing a line from playful banter into public ridicule of officials. The fine came quickly, and it made headlines because it was such a modern kind of conflict. Not a screaming match on the court, but a lip-sync TikTok. You'd think that might make her more cautious. It didn't. On the debut episode of her Show Me Something podcast in July, she went further. She outright questioned the consistency of WNBA officiating, saying they're just so inconsistent, inventing that some very straightforward calls weren't being handled properly. It sounded less like a rant and more like a player who had reached the end of her patience. The league responded again, this time with a larger fine of $1,500. Even that didn't close the book on the issue. In a later episode, after a game where Indiana faced Dallas and Paige Bueckers, Cunningham talked directly about how that matchup was officiated. What she said is where a lot of the current controversy stems from. Sophie went out of her way to praise Paige at first. She said, "I love Paige to death. I think she's a hell of a player and would love to play with her one day." That's not fake. Bueckers is widely respected around the league and by players who went through college watching her dominate. But then Cunningham pivoted and made it very clear what bothered her about that particular night. She said the referees were giving her every freaking whistle, and it felt like you literally couldn't touch her. The key frustration for Sophie was that, in her view, if officials are going to protect a rookie star like that, then they should offer the same kind of whistle to the Fever's guards as well. After those comments, the WNBA stepped in for a third time. Cunningham told her listeners she was officially 3 for 3 on being fined by the WNBA and that they didn't like my comments on Paige Bueckers. By that point, it was obvious. The league was drawing a firm boundary around public criticism of officiating, especially when it's tied to a specific player. So, fast forward to that January 15th TikTok highlight. Sophie posts a clip where she strips Paige Bueckers, a fan says it looks like a foul, and she replies, "I'll show you what a foul really is." It might look cheeky on the surface, but given the history, it landed like a spark on dry grass. For fans who have been watching this unfold all year, it felt like Cunningham was winking at her own reputation. She knows people see her as the player who keeps getting fined for taking aim at the refs and for complaining about how Paige Bueckers is officiated. So, when she responds like that to a "kinda looks like a foul" comment, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It sits on top of months of conversation about whether Paige is getting superstar treatment from officials and whether Cunningham is being punished for refusing to stay quiet about it. That's the context. Now, let's talk about Paige Bueckers.
Bueckers came into the WNBA with as much hype as almost any young player in women's basketball history. She was the #1 pick in the 2025 WNBA draft, landing with the Dallas Wings, and she carried with her years of expectation from her time at UConn. People had been waiting to see how her game would translate to the pros. It didn't take long to get an answer. From the start of her rookie season, Bueckers has been a focal point of the Wings' offense. She's putting up strong scoring numbers, handling the ball, setting up her teammates, and closing games. She plays a skillful, crafty, highly intelligent game, the kind that naturally draws contact because defenders are constantly trying to bump her off her spots, chase her off screens, and contest her drives. That kind of usage almost always leads to more foul calls, either for or against a player. It happened with past greats on the women's side, and it happens in the NBA all the time. Whenever a player has the ball in their hands that much and lives in the lane or around screens, referees are forced to make a lot of judgment calls involving them. So as Bueckers' profile has grown, so has the attention paid to how games involving her are officiated. She's already one of the frontrunners for Rookie of the Year, and every whistle in her games is being dissected on social media, on broadcasts, and now on other players' platforms. When all of this noise around officiating and Sophie's criticism reached her, Paige was asked about it before a game against the Los Angeles Sparks. Her response was calm, measured, and almost deliberately non-controversial. She said, "Everyone is entitled to their own unique personal opinion." That's a very careful way to handle what could easily turn into back-and-forth drama. It doesn't attack Sophie, it doesn't agree with her, it just establishes that Cunningham is allowed to feel the way she feels. In a league that's trying to grow, where every off-court moment can become a viral talking point, that sort of diplomatic answer is exactly what you'd expect from someone the league sees as one of its future faces. Her answer also fits with how she has carried herself all season. With all the noise around her fame, the Rookie of the Year conversation, the expectations in Dallas, Paige has generally stayed composed. She hasn't fed into fan wars, she hasn't complained loudly about calls, and she hasn't used press conferences to fire shots at other players. That contrast between her calm public approach and Sophie's fiery, outspoken style is a big part of why this situation is so fascinating to fans. On one side, you have Cunningham, who is leaning fully into being blunt, emotional, and unfiltered. On the other, you have Bueckers, who is choosing to stay above the fray publicly, even while she's at the center of it. Beyond these two players, though, there's a bigger discussion happening around the WNBA and how officiating works when new stars enter the league. It's not a new idea that big names sometimes seem to get a different whistle. Basketball fans have talked for decades about star treatment, whether it was Michael Jordan, LeBron James, or any MVP-level player being given the benefit of the doubt on certain calls. The WNBA is now entering its own era of very visible, marketable, heavily promoted stars. Players like Caitlin Clark, Paige Bueckers, and others are bringing in new fans, bigger TV audiences, and much more media coverage. With that attention comes scrutiny. Some people wonder, are referees more protective of these players because the league wants to keep them healthy and on the floor? Are officials subconsciously more likely to award them foul calls because everyone's watching them so closely? On the flip side, there's a strong argument that players at that level simply draw more contact and therefore more whistles because they're constantly attacking and constantly being targeted defensively. It's not favoritism, it's just the reality of their role. That's exactly where Sophie Cunningham's frustration seems to live. From her point of view, as someone who built a career on toughness and physical play, some of the whistles being given to Paige in that game felt excessive. When she says you literally couldn't touch her, she's talking about a very specific feeling that the game isn't being called the same way on both sides. The league, for its part, has made it clear that it doesn't want that kind of criticism aired in public, especially when it directly names a player and essentially accuses officials of bias. That's why we've seen the repeated fines. It's a message to every player in the WNBA. You can disagree with officiating, but there are boundaries around how you do it, and tagging referees or calling them out by name or implication crosses that line. But Sophie isn't just a random role player complaining after a loss. She's become a sort of lightning rod in this new era of the league. She has a platform, TikTok, Instagram, her podcast, and she uses it. For fans that like straight talk and drama, she's compelling. For the league office, she's a challenge. And for a rising star like Paige Bueckers, she's become an unexpected voice constantly circling around her name. That's why a comment as small as "I'll show you what a foul really is" doesn't just disappear into a feed of videos. With Cunningham's history and Bueckers' spotlight, it immediately reignites the question, is this just about one play, or is this about something much bigger in the WNBA right now? There's also a generational element that's easy to miss. The WNBA is in a transition. Veterans who have been in the league for years are now sharing the court with rookies who arrive as full-blown celebrities, already with huge college followings and massive social media platforms. For some vet, it may feel like the league is shifting around them. When Paige Bueckers or another rookie seems to get every whistle, that can tap into a sense that standards are changing, that what was once considered normal physical defense is now being penalized more heavily because the league's new faces need to be showcased and protected. At the same time, those rookies are under enormous pressure to live up to the hype. They're not asking for special treatment publicly, they're just trying to adjust to a faster, more physical pro game. Paige's calm answer to the questions about Sophie's comments reflects that. She isn't rushing to defend herself or attack anyone, she's stepping around the landmine and focusing on her play. In a way, both sides of this tension are understandable. Sophie Cunningham wants consistency, wants physical basketball to still be allowed, and wants her teammates to be treated fairly. Paige Bueckers wants to go to work, play at a high level, and not get dragged into commentary about favoritism and league politics. The WNBA wants its officials respected and its rising stars protected, all while fans want transparency and authenticity. So when that TikTok comment thread turned a simple highlight into another flashpoint, it was never just about whether one particular play was a foul or not. It was about Sophie's pattern of pushing the boundaries on what she can say about officiating. It was about Paige's rapid ascent into one of the league's most scrutinized players. And it was about a league that is still figuring out exactly how to handle big personalities, public criticism, and the realities of a growing spotlight. Where this goes next will depend on a few things. Does Sophie continue to speak openly, knowing more fines could be coming if she crosses the league's limits again? Do officials adjust how they call games involving rookies like Bueckers as the season goes on? And will Paige maintain that same calm, diplomatic posture if these conversations keep following her from arena to arena? What's clear right now is that this isn't just background noise. It's part of a bigger shift as the WNBA moves into a new phase of popularity and visibility. Fans are watching every layup, every steal, every whistle, and thanks to players like Sophie Cunningham and Paige Bueckers, they're talking about it in a way that feels bigger than one game or one call. So what do you think? Is Sophie simply saying what other players won't, or is she stepping too far in how she calls out officiating and how she frames games involving Paige? And when you watch Bueckers play for the Dallas Wings, does it look like she's getting extra help from the whistle, or is she just that good at putting pressure on defenses? Those are the questions hanging over the WNBA right now, and you can be sure this won't be the last time Sophie Cunningham and Paige Bueckers end up in the same sentence when people talk about league officiating and star treatment.